Long before the Ark of the Covenant became history's greatest missing relic, it represented something far more profound than gold or craftsmanship. To understand why generations refused to stop searching for it, we must travel even further back, to a wilderness where a newly freed people struggled to build a future after centuries of slavery in Egypt. According to the Hebrew Bible, it was during this journey that Moses received detailed instructions for constructing a sacred chest unlike anything the ancient world had ever seen. It was to be built from durable acacia wood, then overlaid inside and out with pure gold. Upon its lid, known as the mercy seat, stood two golden cherubim facing one another with wings outstretched, forming a symbolic throne above the sacred space between them. Inside the ark were placed objects of immense significance in Israelite tradition, including the stone tablets of the covenant associated with the Ten Commandments. Later traditions also connect the ark with Aaron's staff and a jar of manna, though ancient sources differ on exactly when those items were kept within it. Whether viewed through faith or history, one truth is beyond dispute. No object in ancient Israel carried greater meaning. It was not admired because it was valuable. It was revered because it symbolized the covenant between God and his people. Ancient accounts describe the ark accompanying the Israelites during pivotal moments in their history. Priests carried it as they crossed the Jordan River into the Promised Land. It stood at the center of the camp during years of wandering. It was present during battles, ceremonies, and moments that defined the identity of a nation. Yet these accounts also reveal something equally striking. The ark was never treated as a good luck charm or a trophy of war. It was approached with extraordinary reverence. Only designated priests were permitted to carry it, using poles inserted through golden rings fixed to its sides so that no one would touch it directly. One of the most sobering episodes in the Hebrew Bible tells of Uzzah, who reached out to steady the ark when the oxen stumbled and died immediately after touching it. Whether one interprets this account literally, symbolically, or theologically, it illustrates the profound reverence surrounding the ark in ancient Israel. It was understood not merely as a sacred object, but as something set apart in a unique way. Over time, the ark found its permanent resting place within the Holy of Holies in the temple built by King Solomon in Jerusalem. This inner sanctuary was considered the holiest location in the kingdom. According to biblical tradition, only the high priest entered that chamber, and only once each year on the Day of Atonement. Imagine standing outside those towering temple walls. Beyond the bustling courtyards, beyond the smoke rising from the altar, beyond chambers that few people would ever see, rested a single room entered less often than almost any place in the ancient world. Hidden within that room stood the Arkansas, protected not by armies, but by reverence itself. Kings honored it. Priests guarded it. Generations prayed toward the temple because of what it represented. It became the spiritual heart of Israel. And perhaps that is why its disappearance still echoes across history today. When something so central to a civilization simply vanishes from the historical record, the mystery belongs not only to one people, it becomes part of humanity's shared story. But before we investigate where the ark may have gone, we must first understand the magnificent city that was built to protect it. A city whose fate would forever change history. Imagine arriving in Jerusalem nearly 3,000 years ago. After weeks of climbing dusty roads through the hills of Judea, the city finally rises before you, crowned by walls of pale limestone that glow beneath the morning sun. Merchants call from crowded streets. Pilgrims from distant lands speak unfamiliar languages. The scent of cedar wood, olive oil, and incense drifts through the air. But above every rooftop, one structure commands your attention: the Temple of Solomon. To ancient Israel, this was not merely the most beautiful building in the kingdom. It was the spiritual center of an entire nation. According to the Hebrew Bible, King Solomon spared no expense in its construction. Cedar logs were brought from Lebanon. Massive stones were carefully shaped before reaching the Temple Mount so that the sacred site itself remained free from the noise of hammers and chisels. Gold-covered walls, doors, furnishings, and sacred objects until visitors described the interior as shimmering in the light of countless lamps. Yet despite its beauty, the temple's greatest treasure was never visible to ordinary worshippers. Deep within the complex lay the Holy of Holies, separated by a magnificent veil. Behind that veil rested the Ark of the Covenant. Most people would never see it. Even priests spent their entire lives serving the temple without entering that sacred chamber. According to biblical tradition, only the high priest entered the Holy of Holies, and only once each year on the Day of Atonement, after elaborate rituals of purification. Whether viewed through faith or history, the message is unmistakable. The Ark was not displayed to inspire admiration. It was hidden because it inspired reverence. Imagine that extraordinary responsibility. A priest prepares for the most solemn day of his life. Outside, thousands wait in silent prayer. Inside, every step is deliberate. Every movement carries generations of tradition. Beyond the veil rests the object that symbolizes the covenant between God and his people. For that brief moment, one individual stands in the most sacred place known to ancient Israel. Then the veil closes once more, and another year passes before anyone enters again. Such scenes help us understand why the Ark occupied such a unique place in the hearts of the people. It represented continuity in uncertain times, hope during hardship, and the conviction that their history carried a purpose greater than themselves. Yet history teaches us that even the greatest monuments are not immune to the ambitions of empires. Far beyond Jerusalem, a new power was rising. The Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar II had already transformed his kingdom into one of the most formidable forces of the ancient world. City after city fell before his armies. Nations that resisted were conquered. Those that survived often did so only by accepting Babylonian rule. Jerusalem would eventually face the same choice. Its leaders hoped the city would endure as it always had. Its people trusted that the temple standing at its heart would remain forever. But history had reached one of those moments when the future of an entire civilization would be decided in a matter of days. As Babylon tightened its grip around Jerusalem, few could have imagined that the greatest mystery was not whether the city would fall, but whether its holiest treasure would disappear before the first enemy soldier crossed the temple gates. The siege did not begin with fire. It began with waiting. Day after day, the Babylonian army surrounded Jerusalem, slowly cutting the city off from the outside world. Roads that had once welcomed merchants and pilgrims now carried only soldiers. Food became scarce. Wells and supplies were guarded with increasing desperation. Families who had celebrated festivals together only months before now rationed every piece of bread, uncertain how much longer they could survive. Ancient accounts describe a city under immense pressure, where fear spread as relentlessly as hunger. Yet within the temple, the daily rituals continued. Priests still offered sacrifices. Prayers still rose toward heaven. The great lampstand continued to burn. For many, those familiar acts were more than tradition. They were a declaration that hope had not yet been defeated. Imagine a young apprentice priest standing beside an older mentor as smoke rises in the distance beyond the city walls. He notices that the streets outside have grown quieter. Fewer pilgrims arrive. Fewer merchants enter the gates. Even the songs once heard during worship seem softer than before. Will the temple survive? He quietly asks. The older priest pauses before answering. Empires rise and fall, he says. Our duty is to remain faithful. Whether such a conversation occurred exactly this way, we cannot know. But it reflects the uncertainty that countless people must have felt as Jerusalem approached its darkest hour. Then the unthinkable happened. The Babylonian defenses were breached. Soldiers poured through the city. Houses burned. The palace fell. Soon the flames reached the temple itself. The magnificent cedar beams that had filled the sanctuary with their fragrance ignited, sending thick columns of smoke high above Jerusalem. Gold that had covered walls and sacred furnishings softened in the intense heat. Centuries of devotion disappeared in a single day. The destruction of Solomon's temple became one of the defining tragedies of ancient history. Yet amid the devastation, historians encounter one of the most remarkable silences in the historical record. The biblical books of Kings and Jeremiah, together with Babylonian accounts, describe many treasures removed from the temple. Sacred vessels, bronze pillars, basins, lampstands, and countless valuable objects are carefully recorded. Such detailed inventories make one omission all the more extraordinary. The Ark of the Covenant, the most sacred object in ancient Israel, is never explicitly listed among the treasures carried away to Babylon. Historians have debated this silence for centuries. Some suggest the Ark may already have been hidden before the city fell. Others propose it may have been destroyed during the chaos without being recorded. Still others believe it was removed so quietly that no surviving document preserved its fate. The truth is that no definitive historical evidence has resolved the question. But sometimes what history does not say becomes as important as what it does. That single silence has inspired more than 2,600 years of investigation. Because if the Babylonians did not take the Arkansas, then where did it go? Explorer. This is the moment our investigation truly begins. The evidence grows quieter. The questions become louder. And from this point forward, every path we follow leads not towards certainty, but toward one of humanity's greatest enduring mysteries. Every great investigation begins with a simple rule: follow the evidence before following the legend. So let us reopen the first and perhaps oldest theory surrounding the disappearance of the Ark of the Covenant. Was the Ark hidden before Jerusalem fell? At first glance, the idea sounds like the beginning of an adventure novel. Yet when we examine the historical circumstances, the question becomes surprisingly reasonable. The siege of Jerusalem did not happen overnight. 4 months, perhaps longer, the people of the city watched Babylon's power growing ever closer. They had seen neighboring kingdoms conquered. They understood what happened when great empires captured sacred cities. If ordinary families buried treasure possessions to protect them from invading armies, would the priests responsible for the holiest object in Israel have done any less? Ancient Jewish traditions preserved in later writings suggest that faithful priests may have removed sacred objects from the temple before the final destruction. Some traditions describe hidden chambers beneath the Temple Mount. Others speak of secret passages leading beyond the city. Still others tell of sacred vessels concealed until a future generation worthy of receiving them. These traditions cannot be confirmed by contemporary historical evidence, yet they reveal something important. Within a relatively short time after the destruction of the First Temple, many people already believed the Ark had not been captured by Babylon. The idea itself became part of history. But could such a rescue have been possible? The Temple Mount is one of the oldest continuously occupied sacred sites on Earth. Over thousands of years, each civilization built upon the foundations of those that came before. Massive retaining walls, underground cisterns, tunnels, storage chambers, and hidden passages have been discovered throughout Jerusalem, demonstrating that the city beneath the city is often as complex as the one visible above ground. At the same time, modern archaeological work on the Temple Mount is among the most sensitive and restricted in the world because of its profound religious significance to multiple faiths. As a result, many questions about what lies beneath the mount remain unanswered, not because historians lack curiosity, but because opportunities for excavation are necessarily limited. This has allowed imagination to flourish where evidence remains incomplete. Some believe the Ark still rests beneath Jerusalem, untouched by conquerors, earthquakes, and time itself. Others argue that if such a hiding place ever existed, centuries of construction and destruction would almost certainly have disturbed it. Responsible historians acknowledge both possibilities while recognizing that no archaeological discovery has yet confirmed the Ark's location beneath the Temple Mount. And yet, there is one detail that refuses to disappear. Throughout history, conquerors proudly displayed the treasures they captured. Victories were celebrated by exhibiting gold, sacred objects, royal crowns, and symbols of defeated nations. Had Nebuchadnezzar captured the Ark, the single most sacred object in ancient Israel, it would have represented the ultimate symbol of Babylon's triumph. Yet no surviving Babylonian record clearly claims such a prize. That silence remains one of the strongest reasons this investigation continues today. Perhaps the Ark never left Jerusalem. Or perhaps it had already begun a journey that would carry it far beyond the reach of the Babylonian Empire. Because another ancient tradition, preserved for centuries in a land thousands of miles away, claims that the Ark was not hidden beneath the temple at all. It was carried to Africa, where faithful guardians have watched over it ever since. Our second investigation takes us far from the hills of Jerusalem to the ancient highlands of Ethiopia, where one of history's most remarkable traditions has been preserved for centuries. Unlike many legends that survive only in scattered manuscripts or fading folklore, this one remains part of a living religious tradition. In the city of Aksum stands the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion. According to the beliefs of the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, the Ark of the Covenant rests within a small chapel beside the church, protected by a single guardian monk whose life's calling is to watch over it. Once appointed, that guardian never leaves his sacred duty. No visitor may enter. No photographer may step inside. No archaeologist has been permitted to examine what the chapel contains. Whether one accepts this tradition or not, its continuity over many centuries is itself extraordinary. The Ethiopian account traces the Ark's journey to Menelik I, whom tradition identifies as the son of King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. According to the medieval text known as the Kabra Nagast, Menelik traveled to Jerusalem to meet his father. As he prepared to return to Ethiopia, the ark was secretly taken from Jerusalem and accompanied him home. Some versions of the tradition describe this as the will of God, while others portray it as the decision of devoted priests who believed the ark was meant to reside elsewhere. Historians note that the Kabra Nagast was written many centuries after the events it describes and cannot be treated as contemporary historical evidence for the ark's journey. Even so, the tradition has profoundly shaped Ethiopian religious identity for generations. Across the country, replicas of the ark, known as tablets, occupy a central place in Ethiopian Orthodox worship, reflecting the deep spiritual importance of the biblical covenant. To many believers, the question is not whether the ark is in Ethiopia. It is simply where it has always been. Modern scholars approach the tradition with respect while also recognizing the challenges of historical verification. Because the object in Aksum has never been available for independent examination, historians cannot confirm or refute the claim through archaeology alone. Some researchers have proposed that the object could be an ancient ceremonial chest, a later sacred replica, or another revered artifact whose significance became intertwined with the ark's story over time. Others argue that the uninterrupted strength of the Ethiopian tradition deserves thoughtful consideration, even if definitive proof remains beyond reach. This is where our investigation asks an important question. Must every mystery be solved in order to have value? Whether the ark rests within that quiet chapel or not, millions of people have found hope, identity, and spiritual meaning in the belief that it has been faithfully protected there for centuries. Sometimes history preserves not only objects, but also the faith of those entrusted with remembering them. As investigators, we follow the evidence honestly. As explorers, we also recognize that traditions often preserve insights into how civilizations understood themselves, even when every historical detail cannot be independently verified. Yet Ethiopia is not the only destination proposed by history. Other traditions suggest the ark was concealed in caves, hidden beneath sacred mountains, carried into Egypt, or lost forever during the chaos of war. With each new theory, one truth becomes clearer. The Ark of the Covenant has become more than a missing relic. It has become a mirror reflecting humanity's deepest hopes, its enduring faith, and its unending desire to preserve what it holds most sacred. As our investigation continued, one surprising pattern began to emerge. Nearly every tradition surrounding the Ark of the Covenant, no matter where it originated, shares one remarkable idea. No one claims it was sold. No one claims it was displayed as a prize. No one claims it became the possession of an ambitious king seeking glory. Instead, almost every tradition insists that faithful people risked everything to protect it. That pattern deserves our attention. Our third investigation begins inside Jerusalem itself. Several ancient Jewish traditions speak of priests who, sensing that the Babylonian invasion was inevitable, may have hidden sacred objects before the city fell. Later rabbinic writings and traditions preserved through the centuries mention concealed chambers associated with the temple, although they do not provide verifiable directions to the ark's location. Some believe the ark still rests somewhere beneath the ancient city, waiting in silence beneath layers of history that have accumulated over thousands of years. Others point out that Jerusalem has been conquered, rebuilt, expanded, and excavated repeatedly by successive civilizations. If the ark had remained beneath the city, would no trace of it have appeared by now? Historians acknowledge that this question remains unanswered. Our fourth investigation considers a more sobering possibility. What if the ark was destroyed during the Babylonian conquest? Fire consumed the temple. Roofs collapsed. Massive stones crashed into sacred chambers. Could the ark simply have perished in the catastrophe? At first, this seems plausible, yet another question immediately follows. If such an extraordinary object had been destroyed, why do no surviving contemporary accounts clearly describe its destruction? Ancient writers often recorded the fate of important temples and their treasures. Their silence regarding the ark continues to puzzle researchers. Our fifth investigation asks whether the ark survived the fall of Jerusalem but disappeared during later centuries through events no surviving record preserved. History is filled with libraries lost to fire, royal tombs forgotten beneath shifting sands, and entire cities buried until archaeologists rediscovered them thousands of years later. The absence of evidence is not always evidence of absence. It simply reminds us how much of the ancient world has vanished. And then there is perhaps the most important realization of all. Throughout history, civilizations have often chosen to protect what they considered sacred rather than place it on public display. From hidden manuscripts preserved in remote monasteries to tombs deliberately sealed against intruders, humanity has repeatedly demonstrated that some treasures were valued not because they could be admired, but because they represented something beyond material wealth. Whether the Ark still exists or not, it belongs to that tradition of reverence. Perhaps that is why its mystery continues to inspire us. We live in an age that can photograph distant galaxies, map the ocean floor, and uncover forgotten cities using satellites and ground-penetrating technology. Yet one of history's most famous sacred objects still escapes every confident conclusion. There is something profoundly humbling about that. It reminds us that knowledge continues to grow, but so does our awareness of how much remains beyond our reach. Explorer. Maybe the Ark's greatest gift was never the gold that covered it, nor even the sacred objects it once held. Perhaps its greatest gift has been teaching generation after generation to keep searching with courage, to question with honesty, and to approach the greatest mysteries of history with both curiosity and humility. Our investigation began on the darkest night in Jerusalem's history. We stood beside a city surrounded by an empire, watched the flames consume the Temple of Solomon, and witnessed one of history's most extraordinary silences. The records carefully preserved the fate of golden vessels, bronze pillars, sacred furnishings, and countless treasures. Yet when we searched for the Ark of the Covenant, history answered with silence. From that silence emerged one of humanity's longest-running investigations. Together we followed the evidence through ancient Jerusalem, explored traditions of hidden chambers beneath the Temple Mount, traveled to the highlands of Ethiopia where an unbroken religious tradition continues to guard what many believe is the Ark itself, and examined the difficult questions that historians, archaeologists, and theologians continue asking today. Along the way, we discovered something remarkable. The Ark is not simply a missing artifact. It is a symbol that has inspired faith, scholarship, exploration, and respectful debate for more than 26 centuries. Perhaps one day archaeology will uncover new evidence. Perhaps an overlooked manuscript resting quietly in a forgotten archive will reveal a clue that changes everything. Or perhaps the mystery will remain one of history's greatest unanswered questions. Whatever the future holds, one lesson already stands beyond doubt. Civilizations are remembered not only for what they built, but also for what they believed was worth protecting. The Ark reminds us that every generation inherits something precious from those who came before it. Sometimes that inheritance is a monument. Sometimes it is a story. Sometimes it is wisdom carefully preserved across centuries. And sometimes it is the courage to continue searching for truth, even when every answer cannot yet be known. If the Ark still exists somewhere in our world, may it continue to be treated with the reverence its believers have shown it for thousands of years. And if it has been lost to history forever, its legacy has already accomplished something extraordinary. It has inspired millions of people to study the ancient world, to appreciate the civilizations that shaped humanity, and to recognize that knowledge and humility can walk hand in hand. The greatest discoveries are not always the objects we recover. Sometimes they are the questions that transform the way we see ourselves. Here at Tilt and Chill, this is why we travel through history together. Not to chase sensational headlines, not to force mysteries into convenient answers, but to reopen humanity's greatest investigations with curiosity, respect, and a genuine love for learning. Every forgotten kingdom, every hidden city, every remarkable civilization, every sacred place, and every enduring legend reminds us that the world is far richer than we often imagine. If these journeys inspire you, we invite you to subscribe and become part of our community of explorers. Together, we'll continue uncovering the stories that shaped our world, one investigation at a time. Before we close this case, we'd love to hear your thoughts. After following the evidence, which possibility do you find most compelling? Do you believe the Ark was hidden beneath Jerusalem? Protected in Ethiopia? Lost during history's upheavals? Or do you think its greatest purpose was never to be found again? Share your perspective in the comments. Some of history's most meaningful conversations begin with a single thoughtful question. Until our next investigation, keep your curiosity alive. Continue asking questions. Respect the evidence. Honor the cultures and traditions that have carried these stories across generations. And never lose your sense of wonder. Because somewhere beneath the sands of an ancient desert, inside a forgotten monastery, within the pages of an overlooked manuscript, or hidden in a place no one has yet imagined. Another chapter of humanity's story is still waiting to be discovered. Thank you for joining us on this journey. We'll meet again on the next historical investigation, here on Tilt and Chill, where the greatest treasure we uncover is not gold, but a deeper appreciation for the remarkable story of humanity.